Alison.
Lovely, thank you, Kate, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us for the launch of our Parents Toolkit. My name is Alison Unsted. I'm the Deputy CEO at the City Mental Health Alliance. For those of you who are not familiar with the City Mental Health Alliance, we are a collaboration of leading businesses who are working together to create mentally healthy workplaces. And some of the work that we do is to work together in working groups, of which the Parents Toolkit is the output of one. So I just want to start actually by a quick shout out to Sally Evans and the team at PwC, who initially came to us with the idea of creating this toolkit. We were then thankfully joined by Morgan Stanley and the Bank of England, along with expert contributors from Young Minds, Place to Be and the Pears Maudsley Trust. Now, the guide is aimed at helping parents to understand what good mental health looks like and mental health difficulties in children and young people. It's to help to raise awareness of why and when difficulties may arise and what to look out for. It's to know how to help your child if you feel they are struggling, and it's to help parents to understand when and how to get professional help. Now, this is such an incredibly important document, and I have a bit of a call to action to all of you on this webinar. We would like you to share this document as widely as possible. Please share it with your friends, your families, your children's schools. Please share it with colleagues at work. Please share it on your social. And when you're sharing on social, please use the hashtag Parents Toolkit. Now, we have a really packed lineup of great speakers for you today. We're going to be hearing from Caroline Styant, Managing Director and EMEA Head of HR from Morgan Stanley. Caroline is going to be sharing with us why children's mental health is so important at Morgan Stanley and why businesses should be supporting parents and carers. We're then going to be hearing from Young Minds activist Angie, who has kindly agreed to share her story with us this morning. And then we will move on to our panel of expert speakers. Now, it is a very packed agenda. I hope there are going to be time for a few questions at the end. If you do have any questions, please use the Q&A function at the bottom toolbar. If you want to make any comments or observations throughout the discussion, then please do use the chat function. Now, this is quite an emotive topic. If at any point during the session you require support, then please do contact Kate, our producer, privately through the chat. Kate is also going to put some links in the chat to support helplines that you may wish to use. But before I hand over to Caroline, I want to take this opportunity to share my story with you. I am a parent of a daughter who has been experiencing mental ill health now for 3 years. And 3 years ago, when it started, I started to notice that my daughter had become quite obsessed with her appearance. Any reflective surface that we went past, she was looking in. She became very picky with her food. She was losing weight. She was also starting to withdraw from friends, and I noticed that she was making her way home from school on her own. She wasn't going to her friends' houses. Her friends were not coming over to our house. She'd stopped speaking to friends on FaceTime, which was something that she did quite often. One evening as we broke up for the summer holidays, my daughter had left a note on my bed, and in that note she explained to me how she felt worthless, how she felt that she didn't want to live anymore. She told me that she had started to self-harm. Finding help was really difficult for us. We initially saw our GP, we were referred to CAMHS, and we were put on a wait list for counselling support. My concerns about my daughter's eating at the time were dismissed. My daughter was on the healthy range on the BMI chart. So I decided to seek help privately, but very soon became quite overwhelmed with the number of different therapists and therapies that were out there. I didn't know what half of these things or half of these therapists did. I didn't know what problem we had, what the issues were to find the right help. But I soon also came to learn that many of these therapists actually had no availability. And many of these therapists also didn't feel able to help my daughter because she had quite complex needs. The weight loss continued. She continued to withdraw. I saw my GP a number of times, and I was told that my daughter remained in the healthy weight category and that there's nothing that they could do. I called around to a number of eating disorder clinics, either to be told that I needed a GP referral, that I was living outside of the boundary, to get support from them. And I felt absolutely desperate at this time. I could see, my daughter was becoming quite unwell. I didn't know what to do, and I felt I was starting to lose this battle. Through my network at the City Mental Health Alliance, I had the opportunity to speak to a lady called Dr. Elizabeth McNaught. Some of you may have heard of her. She is a medical doctor, but she has lived experience of an eating disorder. She validated the concerns that I had about my daughter, and I went back to my GP and I demanded a referral. On the 10th of January in 2019, my daughter was diagnosed with anorexia nervosa, and we finally got the help that we needed. To me, it was a huge relief, but my daughter didn't feel quite the same about the intervention. We were treated for 8 months in outpatient care, and I was pleased to say that, after that 8 months, my daughter was refed and at a healthy weight. But her social and her appearance anxiety had become quite severe. She didn't want to leave the house. She wanted to hide away from the world. The self-harm became quite severe. She missed a lot of school. And at that point, we were transferred to CAMHS for CBT therapy. In February of last year, my daughter was finally discharged from CAMHS. And whilst her anxiety hasn't gone away, she has learned how to manage it. And thanks to the care and support of the team at CAMHS, my daughter is now doing really well and has got some very big plans for her future. So as a parent, I just wanted to share a few things that I've learned along the way. Firstly, trust your instincts. If you think something is wrong, you're probably right. There is lots of help and advice out there if you know where to look for it, and that's exactly what this toolkit is designed to do. I wished I had known about Young Minds and Place to Be and all the resources that are available for parents. Involve the school, involve family, involve friends. They say it takes a community to raise a child, and that certainly was my experience. But one of the most helpful things along the way has actually been talking to other parents and learning from their experiences and seeking the support of that community. And there are more of us out there than you probably know. Prioritise your own self-care. You need to be well to support your child. And to the employers out there, I just want to say I was very blessed to be working at the City Mental Health Alliance, where, I worked with a very supportive team who allowed me to manage my work around the needs of my daughter. If that had not have been the case, I think I would have had to have left my job. Recovery is a journey. There will be setbacks, there will be relapses, and it's very much a normal part of the recovery journey. And I just want to finish by saying, there is help and there is hope. And I just want to thank everybody for listening. So with that, Caroline, if I can hand over to you. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alison. And I'm delighted to be here today in support of such an important step in the mental health agenda. As Alison said, I'm Caroline Styant. I head up HR for EMEA at Morgan Stanley. But perhaps more relevantly to today's conversation, I'm a working mum with 3 children. So I can identify with the challenges faced by working parents out there as we try to balance careers and family responsibilities. As a firm, we're proud to be members of the City Mental Health Alliance, in fact, a co-founding member, actually over 10 years ago now. And to have been a partner in the progress we have collectively made in the journey to destigmatise mental health and proactively work towards best practice in supporting our employees. We're proud of how far we've come, but we know there's still so much more we can do. The initiative we're launching today is a key next step in taking the mental health agenda forwards. And speaking as a parent, this toolkit is an essential resource. I think Alison's just made that very clear. We know that the pandemic's impacted our children significantly. Only time will tell how and to what extent, but I'm sure all parents will have a story to tell of challenges their children have faced. In addition, as parents today, our children are facing pressures that can be difficult for us as parents to identify with. For example, the role that social media and technology is playing in their lives. It's incredible what we've had to adapt to support our children over recent years. I mean, my 6-year-old, for example, has only ever attended school in the context of a pandemic, with broken attendance, none of the extracurricular activities that make up school life and provide the building blocks for making friendships. I assume I also speak for many when I say my older children's technology capabilities far outstrip mine, and their sophisticated use of online resources is both impressive and, quite frankly, disturbing in equal measure. We have no ability to measure the impact of these seismic changes to our children's world, and as a parent, that's really a concern. So why does a business like Morgan Stanley care about mental health, and why should we support parents and carers? Well, over 40% of our employees in the UK are parents, not to mention those who have other caring responsibilities. We also have a family network in EMEA with over 900 members. This is a large proportion of our population, and supporting working families is incredibly important to us. To put it in its simplest terms, our people are our greatest asset. We acknowledge that our environment is both high performing and rewarding to work in, but we also recognise the need to nurture our talent and provide support to our working parents in a meaningful way to enable them to perform well. Given the large numbers of working parents we have, providing them with the support to contribute meaningfully at work whilst balancing their personal responsibilities is critical. Listening to our own employees, as well as the wider research in the market, we know that employees want to work for organisations which align with their own values and support them to be themselves at work. None of us can leave our parenting responsibilities at the office door. If the pandemic has given us one upside, maybe it's been the ability to see each other as real people in our own homes, not just as colleagues. Although I don't know about you, but I've become very fast at hitting that Zoom camera button to prevent too much of my family chaos playing out at work. But seriously though, those moments remind each other that we're always dealing with more than just our day-to-day work responsibilities. And we hope that by investing in our working parents, we attract and retain talent, and we encourage a happy, healthy, engaged, and productive workforce. We kind of see it as optimal health for optimal performance. So how do we go about making the change and creating a supportive environment as an employer? Well, at Morgan Stanley, we're all about facilitating a healthy and inclusive culture, an open and honest approach to mental health and well-being. Our well-embedded mental health strategy is focused on 3 key pillars: awareness, prevention, and access to resources and treatment. To support the direction of our mental health strategy, we have both an EMEA Mental Health Advisory Board and a Global Wellbeing Board made up of senior leadership who provide sponsorship on the topic and really provide that tone from the top. As we set off on this strategy, clearly the focus was primarily on the mental health of our employees themselves. But over time, we've realised that supporting our employees' wider families and supporting them in their roles as parents and carers is just as important, and why this toolkit will form such an important part of our overall mental health strategy. We want to provide our employees with the resources to operate effectively and happily at work and at home. Upskilling our managers to be able to provide their teams with the right tailored support has been and will continue to be critical, particularly in a world where hybrid working becomes the norm. And there are greater logistical challenges for managers trying to keep a handle on the well-being of the teams they manage in a disparate world. But as well as focusing on our own organisation, we're also really aware that we cannot just look after ourselves. And we're committed to giving back to the communities we live and work within through our long-lasting partnerships, community-based delivery, and engaging our best asset, our employees. We've always supported a wide range of charitable initiatives, but supporting children in the communities we operate within has always been really close to our hearts here and a priority for our people. As mental health challenges among children and adolescents are rapidly becoming more pervasive and urgent, we firmly believe there's not only an opportunity, but an obligation for the private sector to step in and play a critical role in addressing this problem. So that's why in early 2020, we launched the Morgan Stanley Alliance for Children's Mental Health to deliver positive, tangible impact on the critical challenges of stress, anxiety, and depression in children, adolescents, and young people. Through our partnership with Place to Be, one of the contributing organisations to this toolkit, we're providing mental health support for children in schools in East London and Glasgow, as well as training and guidance to teachers and parents, so they're better equipped to understand children's mental health and how to respond if issues arise. So our participation on this toolkit has really fitted nicely into our strategy. This toolkit forms a key part of the support we can collectively provide to parents. We're really proud it isn't just for the organisations that sponsored it. It's a free public document, accessible to all. And we're committed to using our voice and our broad global footprint to raise awareness, drive advanced thinking, and reduce stigma around this topic. So in summary, I hope this will be a really useful resource for many thousands of people it will reach, and that it helps parents across the UK and beyond better understand children's mental health and how to navigate issues if they arise. We'll never know the true impact, but I have no doubt this resource will provide invaluable support to families. And if it alleviates a difficult period for even one family or helps one parent to start that conversation with their child, then it will be worth every effort. And that's as good a reason as any as why business should support parents and carers. So thank you for making the time to attend this launch today. I hope you use your networks to promote the toolkit so we can get maximum use, and we look forward to hearing your feedback. Thank you. Back to you, Alison.
Caroline, thank you so much. You've made so many important points there, and I think as parents it is a very difficult world, in a world that, I mean, tech, myself trying to understand it and navigate it is incredibly difficult. But I think around the recognition that the inclusion agenda and the recognition, the amount of parents that are in the workplace and maybe struggling with this concern. I think it's fantastic, the investment and the commitment from Morgan Stanley to your employees. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. Now I'd like to introduce Angie. Angie is a Young Minds activist and has agreed to share her story with us this morning. Angie, firstly, thank you so much for agreeing to take part in today's event. Please do tell us a little bit about yourself and your own journey with mental health.
Well, I've lived with depression for a very long time, living with the pressures of having an amazing sister. She goes to an amazing university, and I feel like I get compared to her a lot, and I feel like I'm trying to validate myself in the eyes of my parents all the time, and it gets quite exhausting over time. And when things don't work out well, I just think, well, what's the point? And so I began to develop some symptoms of depression, and maybe struggling with my sleep as well, because obviously over the pandemic, it was really hard to look for support. Support from Young Minds, obviously, and they asked if it was possible to talk to a GP about this and see if I could get any support that way. But obviously, support was really hard to find. I found it really difficult to book an appointment with the GP because you can't have face-to-face consultations. And when you try to book an appointment for your mental health, they'd refer you to other places, which were also not available because it was just so, everyone was obviously looking for mental health. So, but obviously, I began to develop a sense of loneliness as well, because my parents were working over the pandemic and I couldn't visit any of my friends or go to school on a daily basis. So just working upstairs all the time just made me feel really lonely, and I began to become really anxious at night when everyone was asleep and it was really quiet. So I found it really difficult to sleep as well, and my sleeping schedule obviously got affected, and this obviously affects your daily living as well. And it's just a really big cycle of not being able to sleep well, and that affecting your academics maybe, and then or maybe still trying to validate myself in front of my parents, that that makes things worse as well. So it was just a really difficult cycle to live with. And thankfully I had support from Young Minds still. They obviously they often check in with me with regular calls and stuff, and they do look for information, and I looked around on the internet as well. There are lots of good resources on how to support yourself, and eventually I found a drop-in centre within my area, and it wasn't face-to-face consultation obviously, but a call really helped, and they gave really good advice on how to talk to my parents, so that I could take my time and have like just have a good idea on how to talk to my parents about this, because a lot of the time people are like, have you tried talking to your parents? And it's really hard actually, because you can be in a really good mood, but then you can't really you feel like you're bringing the mood down by talking about it. But also when you're feeling like in a bad mood as well, you're just not in the mood to talk about it. So yeah, it was just really hard to talk about it, but I got really good advice from support centres that were available around.
Angie, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think communication is incredibly important, but also incredibly difficult. And I know my daughter struggled to open up and speak to me about what she was experiencing as well. If you were, I mean, we've got lots of parents on the webinar today. I mean, what advice would you give them, or tips would you give parents? What has helped you? Yeah, what advice would you give some of the parents?
I would say the most important thing is to not panic, because I feel like parents, I understand that parents will always want the best out of their child, but I feel like if they panic, then it doesn't really help anyone, because it makes it feel scarier. And I feel like struggling with your mental health doesn't necessarily have to be a scary thing, because it's so common, and it's more common than you think, and it's very valid to struggle with your mental health. So I feel like if you panic less, then talking about it in a non-stigmatizing way would be easier. And then if that happens, then people will be more open to people will be more inclined to open up and then feel less lonely about talking about their struggles. So yeah, panicking is definitely is probably not the best option, but there are lots of resources out there. Obviously you have the CMHA and Young Minds, and there are really useful how-to guides on understanding mental problems and how to support people with those mental problems. But it's really important to remember that you as a parent, if you're not, your role isn't a trained professional, and if they turn to you, they're looking for emotional support, and you don't necessarily have to give advice all the time. So don't feel that pressure to be someone to give professional advice all the time. Just be there for your child, let them know you're valid, and that you're someone they can trust, which sounds really bizarre because you're their parent, but it is really important that you do gain their trust.
Yeah.
I feel like also a lot of people, not necessarily children, but a lot of people don't like to open up as easily as other people, because either they're really scared to talk about it, or they feel like they're not ready, and that's normal. I feel like the best thing you can do in this situation is just to give your child space and let them take their time, and yeah, you can tell them it won't happen immediately. You can my parents had to tell me several times that to stop bottling up my emotions and talk to them if I felt like I ever needed to. And after several conversations, I feel like I was finally ready to talk to them about my feelings. So just be there for them constantly. I feel like that's a really helpful way. And when my parents did that, it made a huge difference for me. I felt more confident and stuff. And then, my final point would be like, I'm guilty of this, but basically I felt like it was so much easier to talk to my friends or teachers at school than my parents, because and I feel like I'm not the only one, but I think it's because as children it's easier to talk to someone your age or someone living a similar lifestyle to you, because I feel like they can relate more. And if you find that your child is talking to others more, I wouldn't take that personally, and it's not a reflection on your parenting. Sometimes they do just find it easier to talk to others. So and obviously, I don't know, I had like a language barrier between my parents. It sounds really strange, but I'm not very good at speaking Chinese and they're not very good at speaking English. So sometimes I feel like communication broke down a bit whenever we try to have a conversation, because I would like forget a word for something, and then the flow just stops. So just don't just be there for your child consistently, and let them know that you're there, and give them the space, I guess, and don't
Angie, well, very, very wise words from you, so thank you so much for those, and I've taken some tips away from what you've just shared today. And I think as a parent, and I've done this myself, you know, when trying to talk to my daughter, is I've come with fear, I've come with my own emotions, and you know, and that hasn't resulted in good communication. So I think there are tactics. I found actually trying to go for a walk with my daughter, you know, so we weren't face to face, we weren't in that sort of I don't want to use confrontational, because it wasn't confrontational, but you know, I think it made her feel that she had a bit more space. I'm also a mental health first aider, and I did apply the listening techniques that we're taught as mental health first aiders, and actually got a much better response from my daughter. And like you mentioned, Angie, sometimes she came and spoke to me a little bit later. So I think that space and that listening is incredibly important. So thank you so much. I can see just some of the comments that are coming in, that everybody has appreciated, you know, what you've shared with us today. But before we finish up, Angie, I'm quite interested in your role as a Young Minds activist, and we just want to hear a little bit about that and why that's important to you, and what you do in that role.
So as a Young Minds activist, obviously I'm sharing my story. I hope to do that a lot more, because I feel like listening to other people about their stories, it can be really inspiring, first of all, and you feel less lonely about it, and you can see that other people are also struggling. And not only that, you can also pick up some tips and like suggestions on how to support yourself or others more. I think working at Young Minds, I think it was one of the best decisions I've ever made, because it's really given me a space to learn about myself and talk about mental health freely, because everyone they have experience with struggling with mental health problems, and it's just a safe space, and it's really nice to talk about it with other people, and they're also motivated to work towards providing support for young people as well. So I feel like it's a nice community there, and we develop ideas together. So right now we're having workshops on self-care, and I'm learning a lot about self-care right there as well, because before I came to Young Minds, I always thought that self-care was like the you know, taking a bath or going out for a walk, but it was more about like setting boundaries for yourself and getting to know who you can trust and how to talk to them. So yeah, I've learned a lot about supporting people and myself as well. So, and basically, as a Young Minds activist, I'd really like to share that with everyone. Hopefully, I feel like as a society, we should learn more about mental health, because not only will that destigmatize it, it would also, as you said, we can help prevent a lot of like problems as well. Because I feel like if we learn to talk about it more, and talk about it in a correct method, then a lot of people feel less lonely about it. And yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Angie, that's a perfect way to end the segment. Thank you so much, and yeah, best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, well, we're now going to move on to our panel discussion. So our panellists today, we have Dr. Susanne Meisel, clinical psychologist from the South London and Maudsley NHS Trust. We have Roxane Caplan, the head of parent services at Young Minds. We have Judah Racham, program leader learning and practice development at PwC. And Sean Maywood, MHFA instructor at PwC. So welcome everybody, and thank you for giving up your time to join us this morning. Susan, if I can start with you. Now, you know, I suppose one of the positive things that we've seen out of the pandemic is it has raised awareness and increased the prioritisation around kind of mental health. And we're certainly hearing the increased prevalence of mental ill health amongst the population in general. But what impact do you feel this has had on children and young people in particular?
Hi, Alison. Thank you so much. I'm actually delighted to be here. And it's a good question because it's actually quite difficult to say across the board. So, of course, anecdotally, as we've heard already this morning, but also from speaking to young people and families, we know that many families and young people have struggled with different things during the pandemic at different times. So, for example, feeling lonely or unmotivated or very anxious. And of course, a lot of the families sadly had to come to terms with lots of bereavement. But we also know that for some families, the pandemic has removed some stressors, for example, the pressure of attending school or parents being around more, which might have been actually had quite a positive impact. So they might be struggling more now to return to school and to return to whatever the new normal or whatever might be. Now, when we look at big data sets with lots of thousands of participants, for example, the England's Mental Health of Children and Young People survey, we see that there's a probable mental health increase across mental health conditions, so depression, anxiety, eating disorders, any mental health condition, from about 11 to 16%, and that's across age, sex, and ethnic groups. But however, it's a bit caveated because it's important to say that we also know that the mental health of young people was already in decline before the pandemic. So we know rates of self-harm, anxiety, depression really increased over the past 10 years. So it's quite difficult to pass out, you know, what were the effects of the pandemic and what would have happened anyway. But I think what we can definitely say is that the pandemic has been a very shared and very difficult and potentially quite traumatic experience for everyone. And it might have had a lasting impact for people or not, depending on their individual circumstances. And, you know, the extent, and as someone else said earlier, the extent and what that will be and how that will look like, that will become apparent only over the next few years. But, you know, what I want you to know is that whatever your experience was or still is, because it's not quite over yet, is it? I want you to know that your experience is valid, and the difficulties that your family has or may have still experiencing is valid. Or if you haven't experienced any difficulties, then that's valid too, because there is no right way to live through a pandemic. And if you find it difficult now to be quite overwhelmed and exhausted and to go back to normal, then, you know, that's okay as well. And we really hope that the toolkit can help us and help you to be a guide for information and the help if you need it.
Lovely, thank you, Susanne. And I know this will be a question that many parents will be asking, but I mean, in your opinion, I mean, what are the sort of signs and symptoms that parents should be looking out for, and at what point should a parent seek kind of professional help?
Yes, so of course it's tricky because young people are young people and we're all people and our moods change, and you know, we have all days where we are just a bit off and things aren't quite right. But what I would always say, and I think you said it as well, Alison, as a tip, you are the parent and you will know your child best. So even if it doesn't feel like it, especially with teenagers, sometimes it doesn't feel like it, but if you have a feeling that something is not okay and something is a bit off, then listen to that gut feeling and just be curious about it. So it doesn't mean you have to go to your child and immediately speak about it or speak to anyone about it, really, but it's more paying attention and being a bit more attuned and thinking, observing a bit more what's going on. And so as professionals, what we would look for is a change in behavior. So that might be a change from what is normal for your child, so whatever that is. And I know in young children or also in teenagers, you know, things can change quite quickly and rapidly. So the other bit to look out for is change in behavior that is quite extreme for that young person and that might last for a while. So, you know, if things go on and on, then you know, and the signs really can be anything and everything. So as you've described, some of that already earlier. So the sudden withdrawal from everyone or from friends, not wanting to go out anymore or do the things that they enjoyed. Or some young people start going out all the time, avoiding being at home, hanging out with people that you don't really know, hanging out with their not usual friendship groups, and being quite on edge all the time, or a change, as Angie has said, in sleeping or eating. So that could be too much or too little. Or being quite secretive around eating, or cutting out certain foods, and all sorts of things around sleeping and eating, or becoming night active much more. And of course, the more obvious and more clear signs are obviously when they come and tell you that they either hurt themselves, or you've noticed they've hurt themselves. For example, a lot of people use cutting to cope with strong emotions, or they express suicidal thoughts, or even not, if it's not clearly suicidal, but I don't want to be here, I just wish I was dead, something along those lines, then of course that's definitely signs that things aren't okay. In younger children especially, but also sometimes in teenagers, we see physical health difficulties, so tummy aches, feeling sick, feeling not wanting to go to school, feeling like feeling ill, or reporting feeling ill, or other physical health difficulties. And then of course some people start hurting other people, so either classmates, friends, or you, and that's often something parents are quite ashamed of and won't really talk about until it's quite getting to a point where it's really quite unsustainable. And I would also say, if you feel the difficulties are constant, and you really, because you're a parent, you will have tried lots of different things, you will have tried to kind of get in there, you will have tried things and nothing seems to work or to help, or you can't get there, then I would say these are all signs that probably it's worth having a conversation with someone. But it's also, for me, it's really, really important to say that signs can be quite subtle. And I think Angie touched on that a bit as well. It can be missed by those around the young person, and can then come quite a shock for the parent when they suddenly hear something's not okay. And it's because, as Angie said, young people are, sometimes it's hard for the young person themselves to accept that things might not be so okay, but also maybe they find it difficult to talk to adults. That's really, they don't want to speak to us as an adult. As Angie said, sometimes it's easy to speak to other people. And, I often see parents who feel very, very guilty and feel like they failed because they haven't spotted the signs. And I want to reassure you, you have not failed as a parent if you don't pick up on something going on. And that is, because it sometimes is really difficult for everyone involved, not just for you, but also for the young person, and so we get stuck sometimes in our own little thought bubbles, and then communication breaks down. But we know that you can all get through this together, and sometimes we need some support from professionals at the right time. And we know that things can change and improve, and I hope some of the stories we've heard today can be some stories of hope as well. And we hope that the toolkit especially can give you some ideas as well, how to just start thinking about mental health, and maybe start ideas about how to start talking about mental health as a family.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Susanne. You've covered a number of points there. And I think, again, the guide, I think one of the challenges is, trying to identify signs and symptoms and behavioural changes, and whether that is mental ill health, or whether that's just, development and changes, and teenagers are, renowned for obviously changes in behaviour. So I think that's been really helpful to hear from you, Susanne. Roxane, sorry, Susanne.
Sorry, it's just like, in case of I noticed I didn't mention sort of the what point people should get professional help sort of thing, if I can just make a quick point on that, if that's okay. So it's just, when it's worrying or when it's overwhelming, then I would say it's worth asking for help. But also, if your young person is in immediate danger of dying or severely hurting themselves, then please dial 999 or go to A&E, where there will be trained mental health professionals. And it's always good, as we've heard already before, to talk to the young person's school, or because they might have a good understanding about what's going on, or then the GP, who might be able to point you to services in the area. But I also know that services are under a lot of pressure, and it can be really, really difficult to get a referral for mental health, because the services are understaffed and under-resourced, as I'm sure many of you have experienced, unfortunately. And, you know, and I am aware of how difficult that is. And we hope that the new Pears Maudsley Centre that we're building for children and young people, that can help to address some of that, because we're planning to train lots of new mental health staff across the mental health disciplines, so not just one discipline, but everyone, and also try to improve training and resources for existing staff, but also rolling out that more widely. And it will hopefully help to bring researchers and clinicians together as well, so we can roll out new treatments quicker. So overall, we're hoping that that will help to access the help you may need when you need it, because we know that timely access is so important. And I think that's been echoed in the comments throughout that I've seen, that it is just really, really difficult. And we know it's so important for families and the young people themselves. So thank you.
Lovely, thank you, Susanne. And I would just like to reiterate on the Pears Maudsley Centre, you know, I think it's going to be an absolutely amazing resource for families. So yeah, and we can put a link in the follow-up communication so people can see what the plans are for that. Roxane, if I can come to you now. Now, Young Minds obviously have a number of resources for both young people and parents, and I know you have a parents helpline offering advice and support. But I just wonder if you could perhaps share with us some of the kind of, I suppose, themes or insights that you're hearing from parents at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Alison. Hello, everyone, and also really delighted to be here today. And just want to give a big shout out and well done to Angie as well, who shared her story, which is really, really difficult, as you did, Alison. You know, so I think it's so important for parents to be able to hear from others that are, you know, have that lived experience, and that's really at the heart of Young Minds. You know, we provide a lot of information for young people on our website, and a lot of that is real stories written by young people. So it's really nice for you to be able to, as parents, share that with young people. We also train those people who are working and volunteering with young people, so just trying to help increase the awareness and understanding around mental health and those signs and symptoms and where to go to get support. And then, as you said, Alison, we have a parent services section. So we have a dedicated website area with resources on, is an A to Z guide, which covers absolutely everything, and lots of that is in the toolkit as well. But in terms of what we've been hearing in recent months, you know, we've been hearing in the last couple of years just how much parents are feeling overwhelmed. You know, there's been so much change, isn't there, in terms of everybody having to work from home, support children and young people with homeschooling. You know, just some young people have actually benefited, I think, as Susanne said, in terms of actually, you know, having some respite from school that might have been difficult and problematic for them. So actually, school sort of and difficulties around school is the biggest thing that we're hearing on the helpline right now. And I think that particularly just after the Christmas break, you know, the latest variant, it's just been really hard for young people to get back to school. And so, you know, there is sort of dedicated information and advice around that. And you know, anybody out there can call our parent and carer helpline. It runs from Monday to Friday, 9:30 till 4, and you'll get through to a trained advisor. And we really believe that if we can try and help at that really early stages, then it can, you know, hopefully head off anything that gets more serious. So in terms of how a trained advisor can help you, really there, in terms of school issues, you know, really they can try and help you understand, I guess, your child's behaviour, and help you really listen to what they're either doing or showing you. And, you know, there might be an underlying issue, so that there might be a mental health condition that's been diagnosed, or perhaps there's, you know, you're on the path to trying to get a diagnosis for that. So that needs to be taken into account. And there also might be issues around bullying, friendship, self-esteem, confidence, depression. And so really we'll offer advice around that. And then also really importantly, and I know Judah's going to speak to this, you know, how to work with the school. You know, we have a teachers insight group at Young Minds who kind of share their insights with us, and they really believe in, you know, the need for that holistic approach. And I know different schools, different local authorities, I'm sure there's many parents and carers listening who've got some different experiences. And I know that there is pressure as well around facing legal action and fines. So, you know, I say this knowing that that is also not the reality for some of you listening. But I think just the importance of trying to work together and asking the school if, you know, they can make some adjustments in terms of the timetable, you know, perhaps seeing whether a school friend and a teacher can walk to the school gates and, you know, walk with your child into school. And also to kind of sort of giving you advice that if you can't get your child to school, just what you can maybe do to support them at home. You know, it's really important perhaps just to try and mirror the school day. You know, it's really, really important in terms of the sleeping patterns stay the same, so that when they are perhaps able to get back to school, that it's not so difficult, you know, in a change of routine. And I think when it comes to schoolwork and trying to keep up with that from home, I think just, you know, you're not going to be able to do it all. So to kind of just try and cover the core subjects and also try and perhaps do subjects that, you know, your young person enjoys. I think the other thing that's really important is to try and encourage them to stay in touch with their friends, even if they're not feeling able to get into school, just to really, you know, keep up to date with out of school activities as well, because I just think the more you can try and keep them connected to the wider world, even if it's just going for a walk, go on a visit or something, that the easier it can be. And I think the other thing is, you know, and Angie talked really nicely to this, is try to stay calm. I know it's so hard to do it. I'm also a parent, you know, and you're also, I'm sure, trying to juggle your own work, you know, other siblings within the family. It's an incredibly hard job, but if you can try and manage your anxiety and seek support and help for yourself, you know, within your friends or with your family, that's really helpful, just to try and keep things as calm for your child or young person. I think the other thing is just to also be honest with school around what is happening. If there are other things going on at home, you know, share that, you know, and if the child is having difficulty with sleep. And then I suppose just lastly, just recognising small achievements. So even if it's just going in for one lesson, that, you know, to sort of celebrate that and try and keep things as positive as you can. And I know, Judy, you were going to perhaps just talk a little bit about, you know, place to be and the support that you offer in schools as well.
Yeah, morning, thanks for having me. I'm really pleased to be here as well. So yeah, I mean, with the work with Place to Be in our schools, I mean, we have support through school project managers and mental health practitioners that are in the schools, but there's also school, you know, staff like Senkos and pastoral support that are really good to work with. And, you know, that collaborative approach that like you're talking about, Roxane, with schools working with parents to think about the best way to help that young person in their individual situation is really key, because, you know, that young person's trigger for not wanting to go into school, you know, that's the bit that really needs to be given some airspace to, in a sense, because that young person needs to be able to verbalize that, talk about that, you know, detail what that really is, and feel comfortable to do that. And maybe they don't feel like doing that with their parents, but maybe they can do that with someone in school that they get on with, or a teacher that they really are bonded with, and things like that. So we really need to give young people the chance to do that and work with them in that way, and then look at how that particular issue can be approached, you know, because usually with things that we're anxious about, you know, if we can't talk about them and if we can't find a way to think of problem solving them, that makes things worse. But if the young person can think through with somebody about how those things can be maybe managed in more bite-sized proportions, then maybe that helps, you know. And I think that's the way where you have to work with schools around how you can be flexible around that young person's timetable, around what things they can and can't engage with at particular times, and what the triggers really are. Because sometimes, I mean, I've worked with many young people where the issue is, you know, just going back into a school with lots of people. It's that issue that is the biggest issue at this time, because they're just so not used to it, because they were at home working, you know, remotely. And so, you know, that just alone, that thing of I'm now in a classroom with lots of people, or there's lots of noise and there's lots of busyness, is too much. So we've got to think about how can we make that bit more manageable over time for that young person. But like I said, within schools, it's going to those support staff that are really there to help have those conversations with you. And within Place to Be schools, we've got quite a few different staff within those schools that are Place to Be partner schools that would definitely work collaboratively with parents to try and think these things through. So yeah, it's an individual process for you and your child. And I think what someone said earlier on about just knowing your child, and you are the expert with your child, is really key, because, you know, I'm a parent as well. You know, your parental understanding of your child is like no other understanding. Nobody else has that understanding, and that's really key in helping that child to be reintegrated or to overcome that issue around getting into school.
Right. Judith, just on the work of Place to Be and some of the resources that you have in schools, could you just share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so first of all, I mean, we have a kind of universal support that is available for parents because, you know, over the last year or so, we've developed a website called Parenting Smart, and that is a website that is freely available. It's available to all parents in the UK, but it's worldwide access to that at the moment now as well. It was launched in October of last year, and that contains all levels of different types of articles for parents to look at around common themes that they might, you know, come across as a parent, and things gives ideas and support and tools around some of those things, you know, things like meal times or sleep, or, you know, building up your listening skills, like we were talking about earlier on about how we listen to children, things like that. There's lots of articles on those types of themes that parents can look on the website for. It's freely downloadable, like I said, it's via website, but you can also download it on your phone as a web app. So that's there. And then also within schools, we have a specific role called a family practitioner now within Place to Be partner schools. And they work directly with parents within schools to, you know, be that connection for a parent to talk through specific issues around their child's development, any challenges they see, any things that they feel that the child is struggling with, even within school, without school. So the family practitioners will have like parent partnership sessions where they will talk with parents, give them ideas, signpost things for them, find resources for them, and help them think through some of those things that would really help that child to thrive and to overcome any difficulties. But like I said, that website is really useful because lots of our family practitioners might find something on our website that would be a real good kind of tool for that parent at that particular time around a specific issue. So that's really key. And then the other thing that we're launching at the end of this month is a parenting course. It's an online course which is free again for our Place to Be partner schools and for primary age children, and the course is over 7 weeks. And what we're trying to encourage there is this learning community, online learning community for parents, where they can almost discover their own journey around how they interact with their children, build their relationships with their children, but also respond to behaviour and conduct issues, but in a really supportive environment. So the online environment, you know, parents can post on there, leave comments about what the learning that they're doing, but also there's a moderator. So one of the family practitioners will moderate that course all the way through the 7 weeks. So they'll be interacting with the family practitioner as well and getting support, and they'll be answering their questions and things like that. So that's a bit of facilitation that happens online, but it's a really supportive space that we're trying to create essentially, because I think it was mentioned earlier on about this idea that parents need to feel like they're not on their own. And, you know, I'm a parent, you know, it's really nice to know that I can speak to other parents as well and to get ideas from them and to feel like I'm, you know, I'm not the only one walking this road, because parenting doesn't come with an instruction manual, you know, so we have to be able to kind of gain ideas that work for us. And one of the things about the course is that it's a toolkit essentially that is there to add to your parental toolkit that you have already, and, you know, maybe give you some more ideas to put within that toolkit, but also just to say, you know, to celebrate almost that you've got strengths as a parent already. So we already have strengths as a parent. We already are doing some really great things. So the course almost acknowledges that and gets you to see some of the things that you're really doing that do make a big difference in your child's life and in your relationship. And I think some of those things within the course kind of feed into what we've been talking about young people feeling like they have a space with us, which is, you know, open enough for them to communicate things which are difficult. And some of the ideas within the course are around building that kind of foundation of a connection with your child, so that they almost feel like they can approach you with some of these things which are difficult quite easily, or easier than, you know, maybe if that's not as strong, that bond. So that, yeah, it's really of course that explores all those themes over that time. So yeah, those are the main kind of ideas that we've kind of developed within Place to Be partner schools. But like I said, the website is really freely accessible to any parent, so they can go on and have a look and see what they think about some of the articles, and even leave feedback about things that they see on there.
Brilliant. Judith, thank you so much. That was fantastic. And I can, you know, in terms of community, I can see on the chat, you know, parents connecting and supporting each other, which is fantastic. Sean, if I can come to you now, we talked a little bit earlier, and I know Caroline talked about this from Morgan Stanley perspective, but we talked about the importance of employers supporting parents and carers in the workplace. And perhaps you could just share with us an example of how PwC is doing this.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And thank you for inviting me along. And as everyone has said, delighted to be involved. Caroline said it, you know, we have a lot of workers at PwC who are parents, and it just makes common sense for us to support them. And so we have our, as I know there will be a lot of people, and I've seen things coming through on the chat, we have our EAP, our Employee Assistance Programme service, which is not just available to our staff, but available to their immediate family members too. And I appreciate that EAPs can vary, and sometimes that may not extend to younger children, but it's worth reminding our staff, for instance, that it's not only the support for the child that they can get through counselling in that EAP service, but also advice and support for the parent, so they can call and get that advice freely from them. We do have our private medical healthcare that's available, and we can add our family members to that. We've got GP care anywhere as well that goes alongside it. I was just seeing some of the things that were coming up with the chat there, you know, around not everyone has that availability to them. And I just wanted to very quickly mention that we do want to help on that broader aspect, and we've got a new schools kit that we've produced that's gone out to schools, which has an element of education around mental health. I saw that flash up a couple of times, that we need to let children know a little bit more about what they're going through, and where they can go for support and who they can talk to.
Brilliant, thanks, Sean. Now, Sean, I know that you are, well, in a previous life, you were a teacher, but you're also a youth MHFA instructor. And I just wonder if you could perhaps just share a few tips in terms of, you know, we've talked a lot about having the conversation and communication, and I just wonder if you can share some tips and insights.
Yeah, and a few of them have come up. You said yourself about a side-by-side conversation, whether that's in a car traveling, or even better still, when you're doing something with your child, and I think alongside that, the idea of posing a scenario to them as well. If you ask an outright question, you're probably going to get a straight answer back. I'd use the example, you know, if you ask a kid, do you smoke, they're going to say no. Whereas, are people starting to smoke at your age? You know, are they engaging with that? Have you seen this with some of your friends? You're more likely to get a conversation going. So I would say, you know, pose a scenario, get a discussion going, rather than that sort of straightforward question. I think a lot of us on the call, I'm a parent myself, my kids are just moving, you know, they're getting a lot older now, actually. But teenagers, we know what goes on with the teenage brain and neurotransmitters around it. But I think one of the things we can often forget to do is just catch them being good. And as they push us away, it's easy to go with that and create that separation. Whereas it's a phrase we used to use in the classroom. It's easy to spot when they've done something wrong, but actually catch them doing something good. You know, when they have put the stuff in the dishwasher finally for once, then actually say that to them, and then you're going to create that safer space for having a conversation. I saw something around you know good listening tips. Silence. You know, just leave the silence there. You know, that comfortable space for your child. And I just wanted to end with one thing as well. Not problem solving and posing a scenario to all of you. Your teenage child has had their first breakup, and probably the words that are on many people's lips here will be that you might say something to them akin to, well, don't worry, there's plenty more fish in the sea. And actually, that's what we don't need to do. For them, that is the biggest event, probably, of upset that they've gone through. And we just need to give them a bit of cared space, not problem solve, hear them out, and then look perhaps towards the positives and what they might be able to do. But it's something that certainly resonated with me. I had a discussion with someone when I was delivering my mental health first aid course, or one of my mental health first aid courses.
Brilliant, Sean.
I'll pause there.
Yeah, I think that's a really good example. So thank you very much. I'm very conscious of time. I just want to say, I want to signpost people. Roxane, we had hoped that you'd be able to talk a little bit about the Young Minds Early Support Hubs campaign. We will share links and share information on that campaign. I think we've all recognised that access to support is often challenging because we don't have the resources there. So it's a fantastic campaign. Please support it in any way that you can. I want to thank all of the panellists and our speakers today. It's been an amazing event. We could probably do this as a whole day event, to be honest. There's so much to discuss, but it has been fantastic. Thank you to all of our listeners for engaging in the chat and for supporting each other's. Again, call to action, share the toolkit widely. We want this to get out as wide as possible. And then one last thing, there will be a survey coming out as the event closes. We want to host more of these events, but we really appreciate feedback from those who've been listening in today. So I will leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. I'm going to end the session now. So thank you, everyone, and to our panelists for joining. And I'm going to end the session now. Thank you, everybody. And take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.